Hey everybody, it's Chris Eads, known online as Wootini, here with another Gay Gamer video podcast. To start with, quick movie review. Justice League came out, and much to my surprise, I enjoyed it. I don't know if that was just because of, like, my expectations had been lowered so far down that I enjoyed it, even though it's only just average. Which it kind of is. It has a lot of problems. The script is not great. There's tonal differences, like, all over the place, because basically Zack Snyder made a Justice League, and Warner Brothers is like, look, you're tanking us after Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. Like, nobody likes the dark, grim, and gritty shit, so, like, let's lighten this up a little. And I feel like he did lighten it some, but they were then, like, you know, they brought in Joss Whedon to, like, kind of punch up the script and give it a little bit more of that team banter that he brought to the Avengers. So the movie ends up being a little bit messy, because the script isn't great to begin with. It's not that it's too long, it's just that things are happening, and then more things happen, and then these other things happen, and it's just sort of like, it just sort of muddles along until it gets to the big fight scene at the end. And just like all origin movies, you have to wait a long time before the team comes together, or this hero gets their costume, that sort of thing, you know. The first movie's always annoying. The second movie you can just jump right in, and it's just action from jump, and it's great. But it's not terrible. And I feel like without Joss Whedon, it might have been, again, like another Batman vs. Superman, where you're just like, no. But I feel like they're starting to understand what Marvel has known from the beginning, which is that the heroes, the superheroes, are meant to be heroic and inspirational and not dark and cranky and brooding. We don't like that. At least I don't. I mean, I'm sure there's some people who do. I mean, those Christopher Nolan Batman movies did gangbuster box office, and I can't stand them. Because I'm not a big Batman fan. And, in fact, they're talking about recasting Ben Affleck as Batman, which would be great. Because I think Ben Affleck is one of the worst Batmans. He's just... He either looks bored or annoyed in every scene. Like, he doesn't want to be there. So, go. It's fine. If you don't want to be there, get an actor who does want to play Batman, and maybe he can bring a little life to the character instead of just walking around talking like this and being all annoyed that I have to be in here with these other idiots. Wonder Woman, of course, is awesome. Gal Gadot is still really bringing a lot of, you know, strength and nobility to Wonder Woman, and I appreciate that. Wonder Woman being still the best DC Comics superhero movie of this new age. Aquaman grew on me. He started out a little bit cranky and annoying, and I feel like maybe that was like the Zack Snyder stuff, and then later in the movie, I feel like Joss Whedon lightened him up and gave him a little more of a fun personality, so he wasn't just dark and brooding and annoying, because we've already got that with Batman. We need him to be a little different. And Ezra Miller is an absolute delight. I am now in love with him. He's super fun, and he brings a lot of the comedy into the movie, because he's all hyperactive and stuff. Although, as my husband pointed out afterwards, they never call him the Flash at any point during the film. They just call him Barry. But Cyborg is the weak link. I enjoyed Cyborg when he was on the new Teen Titans back in the day, but they keep trying to make him happen, and it's just not happening. Especially not here. He never felt right for the Justice League, and I'm sure that the only reason that he's in there is to have a more ethnically diverse cast. And I guess because there are not a lot of African-American superheroes in the DC universe to pick from. So they went with Cyborg, and I don't know, the problem is that it's like a CGI guy, and sometimes they put Cyborg, I feel like sometimes they superimpose the actor's face into the Cyborg CGI character, But then other times I feel like the character's face is also CGI animated, because it's really stiff and awkward, and Cyborg has no personality, and the actor does not come through. And I don't know if that's because it's a CGI face, or if the actor is just not that good, or if it was just too awkward for him to do it with green screen, and it couldn't really give a good performance, because he wasn't actually opposite the other actors. I don't know how it was shot. I'd love to see a making of, because there are scenes in the beginning where he's like wearing like a sweatshirt, a hoodie sweatshirt, and it almost feels like everything is CGI, even though it could just be an actor wearing facial prosthetics and a hoodie. But it looks digital to me, and I don't know why. But whatever. Because the CGI is not good enough to create characters wholesale, not main characters. You can do it during action scenes and stuff, when they're jumping and leaping and flying and stuff. It's good enough for a quick shot. But when your main villain is a completely CGI character, like Steppenwolf is, it looks bad. I've seen better facial animations in video games, you know? It's like, ugh. So the villain has no personality whatsoever, and it's kind of lame. Because you want your villain to have a little personality. You want it to be a little more entertaining. But he's just a boring, giant CGI dude with horns and an axe that just badly lip syncs through his dialogue, and it's sad. I will say I appreciate that they brightened Superman's costume some, so it's not the really, really dark blue and red from the other two movies. It's more primary colors, which I really appreciated. I wish they would do the same thing to Wonder Woman, because she could stand a little brightening on her colors, but baby steps. And yes, you can tell a lot of the reshoots with Henry Cavill, because that CGIing out of his mustache, his upper lip just looks weird in a bunch of scenes, and you're just like, yeah, that doesn't quite work. But good try, though. It's just a little messy, and I'm surprised that it was as entertaining as it was, being so messy because of the script problems and the reshoots and everything. I'm surprised that it hung together as well as it did. I would like to see one that doesn't devolve into... The ending fight scene is just like in Batman vs. Superman, where it's all just like explosions and rubble and fires, and it's just overwhelming and just sensory overload, and it doesn't look like a real location. It's just all green screen. And I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it in the real world. It would just make it a little more realistic. The post-credit scene, just FYI, post-credit scene, not great, doesn't bode well for the future. I'm not thrilled about that development, but the mid-credit scene is an absolute delight, and if the entire movie had that look and feel, Justice League would have been my favorite superhero movie. I think it would have been amazing. But, alas, maybe next time. Maybe with Justice League 2. We'll see. As far as video games, as I mentioned last week, I finished the story of Super Mario Odyssey, and am now just returning to the different kingdoms to break up those big blocks and scatter more moons all over the place to find, and just getting more and more moons. I haven't gone back to every kingdom yet, just a few, and I wanted to get more moons, because if I had to get like another, I don't know, like 100 or something. You had to have like 250 moons total or something to get to the next area. There's another kingdom, like a bonus kingdom that you can go to if you get enough moons. So I was running around, collecting moons left and right, center. I had to collect like another 100 or so. And in fact, it was funny, in the Cascade Kingdom, I saw they opened a shop, and I was like, there's a little shop. Let me buy the cute caveman outfit, which is just adorable. And then I looked to see what other outfits were available on the yellow side, and they had a moon. And I said, let me buy that moon. And then I saw that it also said you could buy 10. And I'm like, let me buy 10. And I bought 10 moons. And I was like, well, that's easy. But then I went back in, and I bought another moon, and I'm like, there doesn't seem to be a limit, and you can actually just buy the moons. Now, that's not going to help you towards your, 100% completion of the game, because you still have the actual moons in the levels to find, but I didn't realize that every shop in every kingdom would sell you moons. So, like, if you had gone around and found moons, and you still needed, like, 3 moons to get to the next kingdom, you could just go buy them, which is actually nice. I didn't realize that, because in the Woodland Kingdom, I I needed like another like 8 or 9 moons, and I'm like, and it took me a while. I like ran around and I used the amiibos to try to find where moons were located, and I found them, and I like did all what I got to do. And I'm like, if I could have just gone and bought them, if I'd known that you could have just gone and bought the moons, I would have just done that, and it would have been a lot faster. But I haven't gone back to every kingdom now, but I don't know when I will, because as I've been talking about, Skyrim was released for the Nintendo Switch, and I've been eagerly anticipating this release. Even though I have other games to play, I've been waiting for the Skyrim on the Switch ever since the Switch was released, because I have always wanted a portable Elder Scrolls game. Back in the day, I remember being super excited that Bethesda was apparently working on a version of Oblivion for the PSP. And I'm like, oh my god, like, being able to play Oblivion on the PSP, like a first-person adventure game. It wouldn't be an open world, it would have been like a hub system. But still, like, there'd be a whole area to explore with dungeons and enemies, and it would have been great. And that would have been super awesome. And I saw, like, some stills and footage of it, but it got canceled, naturally. And when the Vita came out, and I could see that the Vita could handle, like, practically console-style experiences, and it had the dual thumbsticks, so you could do a first-person shooter a lot easier, I was like, well, maybe they'll do it for the Vita. But the Vita never took off, so nobody ever really developed, like, those AAA titles, and, you know, for the Vita, because it wasn't worth the money, because you wouldn't sell that many copies. So I basically gave up on my dream, but then the Switch was announced, and then Bethesda announced that they were going to do Skyrim on the Switch, and I was like, I am so there. Because being able to carry around that amazing open world adventure with you on the train, on the bus, in the other room, wherever, it's amazing. And I did check a few reviews just to make sure that there was nothing horribly wrong with it, even though it didn't look like there would be, and there wasn't. And everyone, like, all the reviews were basically like, this is surprisingly good. Like, we can't believe it, really. And in fact, when I started playing it, I could not believe it myself. It's pretty impressive that it's Skyrim. It's the whole open world. It's all there. It's the exact same game, plus the expansions. And it looks great. Granted, it does not look like a current-gen game. Like, obviously, it's not as pretty as, like, you know, Horizon Zero Dawn. You know, it's still a last-gen game with slightly spruced-up graphics. And obviously, the Switch version isn't going to look as good as, like, the Xbox One or the PS4 versions that are out now. Those are going to be higher resolution with better textures and whatever. But I actually went and put my old 360, I dug out my old 360 copy out of a box and stuck it in my 360 to turn on my Xbox and see, and I have no idea where I was. I was in some kind of an inn with like a bunch of people, and I just walked around the inn and looked at stuff just to compare with what I had been playing on my Switch, and it compares very, very well. The graphics on the Switch are really solid. Like, in fact, I almost prefer the Switch because I feel like the Switch graphics were a little bit brighter and crisper. Because I feel like the Xbox 360 version that I have, like, the 360 was kind of like blurring textures for like depth and distance and stuff, and it kind of muddied things up a little. Which, granted, it's nice when the game like says, oh, okay, we're gonna blur out the background, so, you know, for depth of field. But in the Switch version, everything is super crisp, so it's a little odd, but it's good. I mean, it's a little too crisp, because everything's just a little bit, like, not jagged, but a little, like, everything's very sharp and crisp. And of course, because it's a last-gen game, it's not, you know, the character animations and facial animations and, like, the clothing movement, it's a little off. And yes, you know, people put their hands on their sword and it'll go right through their thigh, and, you know, the clipping is off and stuff. But it's fine, because those are just little tiny details, and the overall experience of playing Skyrim on the Switch is amazing. I've played it both on my TV and then on handheld mode, and it's funny because I feel like in handheld mode it almost looks better because you're shrinking it down onto the tablet screen, which, you know, obviously that's going to sharpen the resolution. It's going to look a lot better than when you blow it up onto your big high-def TV. But it also plays really well in handheld. Like, I wasn't sure because obviously the Pro Controller is great. The way that when you're holding the tablet, it's, you know, the joystick's down here and the buttons are above it, and it's not as comfortable as the Pro Controller. But I played, like, at length, and it was fine. I went around, I fought some enemies, I, you know, did stuff, and then I did it all. I mean, I sitting on my couch, you know, but it was great. I'm super impressed with it. We'll see how far I get in it. I've only ever finished one Elder Scrolls game, and that was after so long that I was like, oh wait, it was Morrowind, because I've mentioned this before, where I, like, suddenly was like, oh right, I stumbled across a main story mission, and it was like, oh yeah, let me go finish that. But it's great, and I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I'm very, very, very excited to have a portable Elder Scrolls game finally. So that's it for this week. I don't know what I'll talk about next week. Probably just more Skyrim, because I don't know what else I'm going to do. Also, because next week is Thanksgiving. I will definitely be playing Skyrim because I'm looking forward to losing myself in Skyrim to make my 3-hour bus ride to my sister's go a lot quicker. Fingers crossed. So come back and I'll have more stuff to talk about. Bye!